As we age, our bodies go through many changes. Some are subtle, others are more noticeable. But one thing we all know is that the aging process can sometimes bring challenges we may not be ready for, physically, mentally, and emotionally. It can be hard to talk about, but there are moments when we realize that time is passing more quickly than we want to admit. Perhaps you've noticed a change in your health or the health of someone close to you. Maybe it's a slower recovery after an illness, more fatigue than usual, or simply the feeling that things aren't quite as sharp as they used to be. And while none of us want to think about the inevitable truth, there comes a time when we must face the reality that we may be in our final years. Understanding the signs of this reality is important, not only for managing our own expectations, but also for being able to make the most of the time we have left, living with intention, dignity, and peace. This is why today, I want to talk about 5 subtle signs that may indicate an elderly person is in their final year, signs that we often overlook, but should never ignore. These are signs that tell us we need to be more aware of what's happening with our health and what we can do to make the remaining time as meaningful as possible. We'll go over these signs together, giving you real examples and practical advice on how to handle these changes. It's not about alarming you, but understanding the signals your body is sending and taking action where possible. Let's dive in and start with the first point. Unexplained weight loss. Weight loss in older adults can happen for many reasons, but when it happens without an obvious cause, like a change in diet or exercise, it can be a sign that the body is starting to shut down. Now, not all weight loss is a cause for concern. As we age, we naturally lose muscle mass, and some people may not have the same appetite they once did. However, if an elderly person is losing weight without trying, and it's noticeable over a short period, it could be a sign that something more serious is going on. Take Mabel, for example. She's in her 80s and has always been a healthy eater. But over the past 6 months, her clothes began to hang loosely and her energy dropped. Her doctor couldn't find any specific reason for her weight loss, and despite trying to eat more, her body simply wasn't absorbing the nutrients the way it used to. The weight loss wasn't dramatic, but over time, it became clear that her body wasn't functioning as it once had. In some cases, unexplained weight loss can indicate an underlying issue like cancer, heart disease, or a decline in organ function. It's important to consult a doctor if you notice this in yourself or a loved one. Weight loss, particularly when accompanied by fatigue, loss of appetite, or changes in behavior, should never be ignored. It's a sign that the body may be struggling, and early intervention can make all the difference. Now, let's move on to the second sign: increased fatigue and weakness. As we age, it's common to feel tired or slower than we used to, and most of us chalk that up to the natural aging process. But there's a difference between feeling tired and feeling completely drained to the point where even the smallest tasks feel overwhelming. This kind of chronic fatigue often comes hand in hand with weakness. You may notice someone has trouble getting out of bed, climbing stairs, or even sitting upright for extended periods. George, who is 77, had always been active, gardening, walking, and doing little projects around his home. But one day, he started to notice that he couldn't make it through the day without feeling exhausted. Even simple tasks like making his morning coffee left him feeling wiped out. He started having trouble walking to the mailbox, and his usual hobbies felt like too much effort. At first, he thought it was just getting older, but when his fatigue didn't let up, he knew something wasn't right. After visiting his doctor, he learned that his heart was weakening, and his muscle mass was deteriorating faster than expected due to a lack of activity. Chronic fatigue like this can be an indicator of a serious decline in health, especially if it comes on suddenly or progressively worsens over time. This sign should be taken seriously, as it can be a symptom of everything from heart failure to end-stage kidney disease. While it's natural to feel tired sometimes, extreme fatigue combined with weakness can signal that the body's systems are beginning to fail. If you or someone you know is experiencing this, it's important to consult a healthcare provider for a thorough evaluation. This brings us to the third sign, which is a more subtle, yet telling change: increased confusion or disorientation. As we age, it's normal to experience occasional forgetfulness or difficulty concentrating. However, increased confusion, where a person becomes disoriented to time, place, or identity, can be a warning sign that their health is deteriorating. This kind of mental decline is often associated with dementia or Alzheimer's disease, but it can also occur due to physical health issues like low blood pressure, infections, or organ failure. Eleanor, 82, had always been sharp as a tack. She could remember details from years ago, keep track of appointments, and even navigate around her hometown without hesitation. But over the past few months, her family noticed she started to forget where she was and what day it was. She'd ask the same questions repeatedly, and sometimes she wouldn't recognize the people she had known for years. It wasn't full-on confusion, but it was more frequent and noticeable than anything she'd experienced before. When her family took her to the doctor, they discovered that her body wasn't processing oxygen effectively, which was affecting her brain function. When someone starts to show confusion or disorientation, it's important to take notice. While it's easy to dismiss these symptoms as part of the aging process, they may be a sign that the body or brain is struggling in ways that need medical attention. The sooner you address the issue, the better you can manage it. It's important to get a proper diagnosis so that you can address the root cause and help the person maintain their quality of life. Now that we've covered the first three signs, unexplained weight loss, increased fatigue, and confusion or disorientation, let's move on to the final two signs in the next part. As we continue discussing the subtle signs that an elderly person may be nearing their final year, let's dive into the fourth sign, which can sometimes be an unsettling but important indicator of declining health: changes in breathing patterns. Breathing changes are one of the more telling signs that the body is beginning to struggle. Now, we all know that as we age, breathing can become more difficult for various reasons. You might notice yourself getting winded more easily or needing to take a break more often. However, there's a significant difference between normal age-related changes and the irregular breathing patterns that can signal something more serious. Marlene, for example, is 80 years old. For much of her life, she had no history of breathing problems or lung conditions. But recently, her family noticed that her breathing had become more labored. She began having periods where her breaths were shallow and quick, especially during the night. Sometimes, she would wake up in a panic, gasping for air. What started as a minor change gradually worsened, and soon, Marlene found it difficult to walk to the kitchen without becoming out of breath. She was often winded after the simplest activities, like talking or walking around her house. Her family grew concerned and took her to the doctor, where it was discovered that Marlene's heart function was weakening, which was contributing to her breathing difficulties. So, what does this mean for anyone noticing similar patterns in themselves or a loved one? Irregular or labored breathing can be a sign of heart failure, lung disease, or even organ failure, all of which can impact the body's ability to get enough oxygen. These conditions can cause the body to struggle for breath, leading to shortness of breath even when the person is at rest. The breathing may also become more erratic. You may notice pauses or gasps between breaths, or the person may begin to breathe more heavily. These are clear signals that the body is not functioning optimally. Breathing changes like these shouldn't be ignored. If you notice someone's breathing becoming irregular or difficult, especially at rest, it's important to seek medical attention. It's not just about getting oxygen to the body. It's about ensuring that the person remains as comfortable as possible and that they get the right kind of care to manage these symptoms. In many cases, doctors can help manage breathing difficulties, providing medication or techniques to make the person more comfortable. This leads us to the fifth sign, which is closely related to the body's declining function: a sudden lack of interest in eating or drinking. When an elderly person suddenly loses interest in eating or drinking, it is often a subtle but significant sign that their body is beginning to shut down. We all go through phases where our appetite isn't as strong, but when someone stops eating and drinking consistently, it can mean that their body no longer needs or is able to process nutrition in the same way it once did. For James, an 82-year-old who had been in generally good health, the changes started gradually. At first, he simply lost interest in his favorite foods, and he stopped snacking between meals. His family didn't think much of it, assuming it was just age catching up with him. However, over the next few weeks, his eating habits worsened. He started skipping meals entirely, and when offered food, he would turn it away without reason. His once full glass of water was often left untouched. It wasn't until his energy significantly decreased, and he became more frail and weak, that his family began to worry. James had stopped drinking liquids altogether, and his weight was dropping rapidly. This wasn't just about a loss of appetite. It was about his body no longer signaling the need for nourishment. This lack of interest in eating and drinking is a common sign that the body is preparing for the end. As the body weakens, it doesn't need as much fuel, and this can result in dehydration and malnutrition. However, this stage can also be a time when comfort care becomes the primary focus. In cases like this, it's not about pushing the person to eat. It's about providing hydration and comfort to make sure they are as comfortable and pain-free as possible during the process. If you or someone you know is experiencing a lack of interest in eating and drinking, it's important to be aware that it can be a signal of something more serious, such as organ failure, terminal illness, or simply the body's slowing systems. At this stage, it's essential to be mindful of the person's comfort. Gentle encouragement, offering small sips of water, or providing easy-to-eat nutritious options can help. Now, let's move on to the sixth and final sign, perhaps the most emotional and difficult to address: a sudden withdrawal or disinterest in life. This one is often subtle, but it can be one of the clearest signs that someone may be entering their final year. When a person begins to withdraw from life, it's not necessarily a sign of depression, but more of a quiet surrender to their condition. The body is tired, and their desire to engage in activities they once loved or interact with people they once enjoyed spending time with starts to fade. Sarah, 79, had always been a social butterfly. She was active in her community, loved attending family gatherings, and would spend hours gardening in her backyard. But recently, Sarah had started pulling away from these activities. She stopped inviting friends over, and even though her family would visit regularly, she didn't seem interested in talking as much. It wasn't that she was unhappy, she seemed at peace, but her interest in things she used to love simply faded. Her family, initially unsure how to handle it, realized that this change wasn't about wanting to be alone. It was a natural decline that sometimes comes when the body begins to shut down. When Sarah's energy was low, her body and mind simply started withdrawing as a means of preparing for the final stages. While this process may be difficult to accept, it's important to understand that withdrawal can be a form of acceptance for many people, a sign that they are tired and ready to rest. If you notice someone you love withdrawing, be patient and compassionate. Offer your support and continue to be present. But don't try to force them to be active if they're not interested. Their body and mind may simply be giving signals that they are preparing to let go. Now that we've covered the first 5 signs, unexplained weight loss, increased fatigue, breathing changes, loss of appetite, and withdrawal from life, let's explore how to navigate these changes and support our loved ones through the process. Recognizing these signs early is one thing, but what comes next is just as important. What do we do once we realize someone we love might be in their final year? How can we ensure their final months or days are filled with peace, comfort, and dignity? The first step in dealing with these changes is to ensure the right care. As the body and mind begin to slow down, medical care shifts from aggressive treatments to more comfort-focused care. This shift can sometimes be difficult for family members to accept, but it is essential for easing the transition from life to death. The focus should be on palliative care, which helps manage pain, breathing difficulties, fatigue, and any other symptoms that may arise. Take Helen, for example. Helen, who was 85, had been showing signs of increased fatigue, weight loss, and breathing issues. After discussing with her doctor, the family decided to shift from trying to cure her health issues to making her final months as comfortable as possible. They worked with a palliative care team to ensure she had medications for pain, support for breathing, and help managing her appetite. At home, the focus wasn't on prolonging life with more hospital visits, but on ensuring that Helen's quality of life was as high as possible. Palliative care isn't just about managing physical symptoms, it's about providing emotional support too. Many people nearing the end of their life may feel fearful, anxious, or sad, and they may need comfort beyond just physical care. This is where caregivers and family members play a critical role. Whether it's simply holding their hand, talking to them, or sharing memories, being present can make all the difference. It's important to create a calming, supportive environment that reassures them they are not alone. Now, beyond physical comfort, there's another crucial aspect: communication. Talking about the end of life is never easy, but it's important to have open and honest conversations with the elderly person about their wishes. Do they want to be surrounded by family in their final moments? Do they have specific wishes for how they'd like to spend their remaining time? This is a vital conversation to have. It can be emotionally difficult, but it's also a gift to both the person and their family to ensure that everyone is on the same page. Thomas, 80, had lived a long and full life, but he had started to show signs of decline, fatigue, memory issues, and difficulty moving around. His daughter, Rachel, knew that his health was declining, but she had hesitated to have the conversation about end-of-life care. Finally, Rachel asked her father about his wishes. Did he want to stay at home for as long as possible, or did he want hospice care? What were his feelings about life support or resuscitation? Though it was a difficult conversation, Thomas was grateful to have the opportunity to express his wishes. He told his daughter that he didn't want any aggressive treatments. He preferred to remain comfortable and at home with family. This clarity gave Rachel peace of mind, knowing she could follow her father's wishes. These conversations are often avoided out of fear or discomfort, but they allow the person to make decisions based on their values and comfort. If they're unable to speak for themselves later, having a plan in place can make a huge difference. So start the conversation early. Ask about their end-of-life care preferences and advance directives so that everyone is prepared when the time comes. Another key component of caring for someone in their final stages of life is providing emotional and spiritual support. As someone nears the end of their life, they may experience a wide range of emotions: fear, regret, peace, or even acceptance. Providing emotional support means creating space for them to express these feelings without judgment. Sometimes, they may want to talk about their fears or share their memories, and being a compassionate listener can be incredibly comforting. Spiritual care can also play a significant role for some people. For those who are religious or spiritual, having someone there to pray, read sacred texts, or talk about their faith can be a great source of comfort. Some people find peace in having spiritual leaders visit them, or simply in the rituals of their faith that offer a sense of connection to something greater than themselves. For example, John, 78, had been increasingly withdrawn and showed signs of fatigue and loss of interest in eating. He was a devout Christian and had always enjoyed reading from the Bible and praying with his children. As his health declined, his family made sure that prayers were a part of his daily routine, and they would gather around him to read from his favorite passages. This gave John comfort in his final days, and it also helped his family find peace, knowing they had respected his spiritual beliefs during this time. Providing emotional and spiritual support isn't just about addressing a person's needs. It's also about helping family members cope. Watching someone you love go through this process can be incredibly difficult. Family members often experience grief, guilt, and uncertainty, and it's important for caregivers to take care of their own mental and emotional health too. Kathy, who had been caring for her mother, felt overwhelmed with the responsibility of managing her mother's final days. She was constantly torn between trying to provide the best care possible and dealing with her own emotional strain. Kathy found that by joining a caregiver support group and taking time for self-care, she was able to find the emotional strength needed to care for her mother while maintaining her own mental health. Caregivers should always remember that it's okay to ask for help and to take breaks when needed. Your well-being matters too. The last thing I want to mention is the importance of preserving dignity. As we approach the end of life, it's easy to feel like we're losing control over our bodies, our decisions, and our lives. But one of the most profound things we can do as caregivers and family members is to ensure that the person feels respected and valued. If a person is no longer able to perform certain tasks, it's essential to help them in a way that preserves their dignity. This could mean being gentle in your approach, giving them time to make decisions when possible, or simply offering them choices where they can still feel some control. Barbara, 82, had recently been having trouble with mobility and had started needing help with dressing and personal care. Her family made sure to always ask for her input, giving her options about what she wanted to wear and when she wanted to take a shower. This simple act of preserving her dignity made Barbara feel empowered and respected, even as she was experiencing the challenges of aging. As we conclude this video, I want to leave you with a few key takeaways. Recognizing the signs that someone may be nearing the end of their life is important, but it's just as crucial to respond with compassion and care. Open communication, providing comfort, and offering emotional and spiritual support are all essential components of ensuring that someone's final days are filled with peace. And remember, as caregivers, you must take care of yourselves too. You can't pour from an empty cup, so make sure to seek support, rest, and emotional care when needed. I hope this video has provided valuable insights and comfort as you care for your loved ones or prepare for your own journey. If you found this information helpful, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. And remember, whether you're the one receiving care or the one providing it, every day is a gift. Take time to love, cherish, and live fully, no matter where you are in life. Here's to making the most of every moment, no matter your age.